Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to this live stream. I'm broadcasting here live from Bucharest, Romania, to bring you the latest updates on the constitutional insanity that we have delved into. Um, a friend of mine was saying these days that this is kind of like the 1937 of Romania all over again, because it really looks like the point when Romanian democracy collapsed upon itself in the 1930s. Not because the far right is set to win some elections or anything like this, even though this is how the situation is painted by by actually the majority of the mainstream media. It's rather because the Romanian institutions were quite weak, were quite fragile, and in the end they just collapsed into nonsense. So essentially, the Constitutional Court ordered 11 days ago something that it had no prerogative to do. The problem is not just the fact that the elections were cancelled as they were happening, as the people were voting, as the people from abroad were casting their ballots. The election was annulled completely, and also the first round was annulled, which had already been validated and everything. I'm not talking about the fact that this happened. I'm talking about the fact that the Constitutional Court had no mandate to actually do that. So it just extended its prerogatives to doing absolutely whatever it wants, taking advantage of the provision that its decisions cannot be challenged in court. So even though it is true that the decisions of the Constitutional Court are final and they cannot be undone by any other instance except itself, so it can undo its own decisions, and no court from the ordinary legal system can challenge it. This does not mean that the Constitutional Court has the prerogative to regulate any aspect of life, even though it had a mandate to approve, to validate the rounds of elections and to deal with any kind of challenges, to deal with motions against the validation of the rounds of election. It did not have the mandate to just come out on its own will, and also it did not have the mandate to annul the entire process. So this reminds me a bit of what was happening in Moldova like 6 or 7 years ago, back when before Maia Sandu came to power, when there was the alleged Alliance for European Integration, which was run by this oligarch called Plahotniuc. And at some point, he had so much control over society and over the institutions that the Constitutional Court judges, which he had appointed through his party, were running Moldova in the sense that they were dismissing the prime minister and appointing another one, just out of their own will, which of course subsequently they had to cancel and whatever. But yeah, this is what's going on in Romania right now as well. You have this sort of I wouldn't even call it a judicial coup, because the Constitutional Court is not an arm of the judiciary. It's a constitutional coup orchestrated by the people who have the prerogative to make sure that the Constitution is respected. And not only did they do that, not only did they have the nerve to just come out and illegally cancel the elections while they were taking place and annulling the entire process that they had previously validated. Not only this, they also extended the mandate of the current president of Romania beyond its term limits, which is also against the constitution. So, according to the constitution, once Iohannis' second term expires, so on the 21st of December, he reaches 5 years in office, and from that point onwards, he's no longer president. Once this happens, the president of the Senate, the upper chamber of the legislature, becomes the new interim president. This is the constitutional process described very well in the Constitution. And what did the Constitutional Court do? It just came in the same decision that it gave to annul the elections. It just came out of its own volition to say that Iohannis will remain president until further notice, until some future election will be called and the elected and validated president will have taken his oath. for office. So the Constitutional Court basically just illegally extended the term of the president of Romania, which is unconstitutional. The only situation when the mandate of the president of Romania can be extended legally according to the constitution is the situation of war or the situation of calamity when you have the state of emergency declared, and that can only be and his term can only be extended by parliament with a two-thirds majority, so it has to be the same as an organic law. So of course this has not happened. The Constitutional Court just proclaimed out of its own volition that Iohannis will stay president until there's a new president, which the new president will have to be elected by some elections, which will be called by the new next government, which will have to be formed by the new parliament, which has not even come to take office. So just an indefinite extension of his term, essentially, which is against the constitution. So officially, on the 21st of December should be the last day of Iohannis. From that point onward, the president of the Senate should come and take his place with interim powers. This is if we remain within the constitutional limits. Apparently, this will not happen. So Iohannis also came out after having apologized to the Romanian people for being such a... It would be improper to say that he was a weak president. He was not a weak president. He was just on vacation the entire time. He's just a puppet. He did not even take his mandate as president seriously. He embarrassed us abroad, like doing all sorts of things that you would not do on a private visit, let alone on a state visit. So you would not do as a guest in somebody's house, and then he does it on official visits representing Romania. He's basically completely useless, and the forces behind him want to extend his term because apparently his uselessness is very useful to some people. So the 22nd of December should be the first day when Romania has a new president, irrespective of who that new president is, the next president of the Senate. But Iohannis has already announced that he will stay on, just because why not, right? So yeah, this is the situation where we are in. The non-sovereigntist parties have painted themselves as the pro-European coalition, even though they have yet to establish such a coalition, a governing coalition. But they have, and the mainstream media paints them as the pro-Europeans, whereas the sovereigntist opposition is painted as pro-Russian. And yeah, there's this segment of society, the minority of the Romanian people, who are globalist and who cheer for the fact that the election was cancelled, and who don't actually get it. They don't get that they will not remain in power indefinitely. So Romania cannot be democratic and prevent the sovereigntists from taking power at the same time. This is a contradiction in terms. So once the majority of the people want to vote for a sovereigntist candidate, there's nothing that the minority can do in a constitutional realm, in the democratic sphere, as long as we keep Romania under the constitutional rule of law. Okay, if they want to take Romania out of the constitutional setting, which of course they seem to be doing, then yeah, maybe they will be able to cling to power. But it's not exactly sure how they can do that, because they also accuse that the secret services and the army are sovereigntists, which, big surprise, of course, that they are sovereigntists. They take a military oath, and their military oath is not to Pfizer nor to Raytheon. It is to the flag of Romania, the people of Romania, the constitution of Romania. So of course that the establishment, the military establishment of the country, is sovereigntist. There's nothing that they can do about it. Yet they somehow hope to preserve power, to cling on to power indefinitely. They somehow celebrate it as a victory, so they're not even worried. The worried camp is the majority, the sovereigntist camp. They are worried that okay, some bad things will start happening to us. They'll put us in jail. In the past days, the police have called in for interrogation all the influencers on TikTok and on Facebook who had supported Călin Georgescu. Luckily, I was not called because I did not support Călin Georgescu in the first round. So I actually supported George Simion, the other sovereigntist candidate, because I thought Călin Georgescu stood no chance. But the people who supported Călin Georgescu were called in for interrogation, and they were accused of illegally financing his campaign or of getting paid to vote, to sell their votes. Some absolutely amazing, shocking accusations. And this only smells of desperation. So the system cannot manage the situation. The system, I think, cannot even understand that the situation that they've painted themselves into. They've painted themselves into this corner where they pretend they are the virtuous ones and the democratic ones, and they are the ones who uphold European values and the rule of law. Whereas they commit the most unimaginable abuses. It's like we're during the pandemic again, when you have the pro-democracy camp saying that the majority of the Romanian people who did not accept the vaccine should be vaccinated by force or should be put into camps. You know, it's like we have this all over again. So it is obvious that the non-democratic forces, which are the minority in Romania and which are the establishment parties and the establishment media, cannot hold on to power indefinitely. However, they can also not play they can also not play the institutional game, because the institutions are against them, the institutions of force, the military institutions of the country, the secret services and so on. So they're just in this limbo where I don't know what will happen. This coalition is also not going well, the so-called pro-European government coalition. They are struggling to find some sort of agreement. There's a good chance that they will not be able to convene some sort of government, which means that the presidential elections will also be postponed indefinitely, because you need a stable government that can call these elections. Um, it's hard for me to actually imagine how Romania will get out of this, because also different strands of society believe different things, and this thing with the Russian interference, this was the main reason why the election was called off, why the election was illegally annulled while it was taking place. And ever since then, no Russian interference could be actually proven. So, no financial circuit from Russia to financing the campaign of this guy, to financing the influencers on TikTok. No, I don't know, Russian endorsement. No, nothing that could have changed the will of the people to vote for him, for Georgescu, against their will. The votes had been recounted. They were well cast. So there was this in the beginning. There was this narrative that the Russian government, some hackers from Russia attacked the servers of the Central Electorate Commission, and that could have tainted the result. Well, obviously, those votes were cast by actual Georgescu supporters because they had already been recounted, and the numbers stick. He won the first round by a landslide. The opinion polls gave him as the absolute winner, the uncontestable winner in the second round by 70%, not including the diaspora, which was heavily pro-Georgescu. So basically, there's no more official narrative, you know. The TikTok influencers who supported Georgescu said that they were not even paid for that. They were paid for other things. They were paid for supporting Simeon or Aur, but not Georgescu. So they supported Georgescu out of their own will. But even that would have been irrelevant, you know, or how he financed his campaign. All of that would have been irrelevant once the votes were cast and once the majority of the Romanian people want to vote for him. So this is why it's also hard to imagine that they could exclude him from a subsequent presidential election, if that were to happen, because they have nothing against him. Finally, they have nothing against him, even though they came up with all of these stories that his bodyguards are legionnaires. Well, they are ex-legionnaires from the French Foreign Legion, and they're French citizens, but they did not run away with that story. They tried to run away with the story that his guards, his bodyguards, are either Wagner mercenaries or that they are members of the far right, this organization of the 1930s, which was fascist and which was a collaborator of Nazi Germany. So, you know, they kept on bringing all of these weird accusations, and none of them stuck. So it's hard to imagine that Georgescu will be um, prohibited from taking part in the next election. However, they know for a fact that if he is allowed to run, he will win from the first round, just because not only is he very popular, not only was he very popular the first time, but now so many people are upset because the election has been stolen and democracy has been stolen from the people, that they will vote for him in droves. There's gonna be a landslide for Georgescu this time. So yeah, I don't know what they can do. I don't know what the Romanian authorities are going to do. They're in a very bad situation. They probably don't even realize it. They are provisional in any case, so the government will change. The president no longer has even interim powers as of this Saturday. So this is why I'm making this parallel to 1937. This is when we had this election, and our king, because Romania was a monarchy then, did not like the first three parties that that won. So the ones that came on the podium. So he selected the guy who was leading the fourth party to become prime minister, and that was kind of the last democratically elected government. Even though it was not democratically elected, he was just appointed, but at least he ran in elections, because the next year the Romanian constitution was annulled, and the start of totalitarianism happened. So our king Carl II proclaimed himself sole ruler of Romania. He formed this political party, which would be the only legally recognized political party, the National Renaissance Front, and that would run the country. And he would appoint his own prime ministers, and basically the royal dictatorship started. So the situation right now in Romania resembles, in my eyes, and not only in my eyes, the year 1937 in Romanian history. Also, in the background, having the prospect of a world war, with Romania being a frontline country. So, very, very, very reminiscent to 1937. What's going on right now? 1937, which coincidentally was this election when the guy who was appointed prime minister, even though he came in fourth, ran in this county in the south of present-day Moldova, where my great-grandparents were living, and actually my great-grandpa was a member of his staff. Very interesting political history in my family. So, but yeah, so this is what I wanted to tell you. And until next time, take care. Bye.